Hello everyone, this is Mr. Reimer. This video is for Monday, September 14th and Tuesday, September 15th. It's entitled The Earliest Humans from Paleolithic Society to Neolithic Society. Our objective is we will analyze the important changes to human life caused by the Neolithic Revolution by writing a short body paragraph comparing Paleolithic societies and Neolithic societies. It's our first lesson of content and skills as well as our next graded DOL. So a lot is happening. Let's jump right into it. All right, what I want you to do before we do any of that is I want you to pause the video and do a preview activity. This preview activity is to stimulate your brain's juices. It's to activate your neurons, getting you ready to learn, plus letting me know a little bit more about you. So I want you to, in 1 to 3 sentences, explain how you think the study of history will help you in your life. Now, if you're with me in the virtual class, you can go ahead and type this in the chat. But if you are not, I highly encourage you right now, go get some paper because you're going to need it to take notes, including writing this down. All right, you're going to pause the video. Pause the video. If you're live, you can be writing in the chat or on paper. If you're not live, pause the video and go get some paper and let's get to work. Pause the video now. Okay, did you pause the video? All right, you better. In the chat, I'm going to hear from you. But if you're not, let's move on. So remember I said in the very first video that this class is all about skills. I want to prepare you for life outside of class, whether that be in the future classes or whether that be in your career. The skills we're going to focus on in this class are what I call the 5 C's. Context, comparison, causation, change, and connections. We will weave these throughout the entire class. Are we going to do all of them all in one day? No. Are we going to do all of them today? No. Today we're going to focus on the first 2. Context, which is looking at the larger framework. Think of if you've ever seen the Russian nesting dolls where you have a large doll and then inside the large doll there's a smaller doll and then inside that doll there's a smaller doll. So if you start to peel away the dolls, they're revealing other dolls. That is kind of what we're talking about when we want to look at the context. We want to get deep inside those nested dolls, or we want to get wider. Another way to think of it is if you're a fan of TV shows where they start the TV show with the previously on, and then they give you clips of not just the previous episode, but many previous episodes. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the context or the larger framework. We need to understand what else is going on around whatever event we're studying. Today, we're going to focus on comparison. Remember, in our objective, you saw that you're going to have to write a body paragraph. So very simply, comparison, as you've done before in previous classes, is identifying similarities and differences. When I say compare, I mean do both. Do similarities and differences. The number one mistake students make is they think comparison just means identifying similarities. No. In this class, it means both. Okay. The other major framework we're going to use this year when we go through world history is to use themes. They are like buckets. They are like organizational hooks that we can sort and categorize our information. It helps us make sense of history a lot easier. All right, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. And just as a side note, this is a key part about life. Is you're constantly being bombarded with information, and you don't know how to make sense of it. It helps if you stop and you create some categories. And categories that say, all right, I'm going to put that here, and I'm going to put this information over there. Like, for example, when you're creating your schedule, and I have some family responsibilities, and I have some schoolwork responsibilities, and I have some work responsibilities, and you sort your time into these different buckets. That's similar to what we're going to do with all of the information that you're going to get in this course. All right, here are the 6 themes. Interaction between humans and the environment, cultural development and interactions, governance, economic systems, social interactions in organization, and technology and innovation. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, how am I going to remember those? I mean, even the acronyms don't make sense. CDI, SIO, Mr. Reimer, I'm not going to remember those. You're in luck. I had a student last year come up with a helpful acronym to remember. You ready? Here it is. This year we're going to get sick with the themes. GETSIC, get sick. It's the acronym to help you remember the themes. The G stands for governance, the first E for economic systems, T for technology and innovation, S, social interactions and organization, I, interaction between humans and the environment, and C, cultural development and interactions. Now, what I want to do in this video is I want to explain in more detail each of these themes. You're going to need this information to take notes later in class today, but also we're going to use these themes all throughout the course. So I want to make sure you have a good understanding of what they mean. So if you haven't gotten some paper and started to take notes, pause the video now and get some, because we're about to get sick with the themes. Here we go. Organize your paper in a very simple 2-column chart where you have the themes on the left and then the description on the right. All right. You can turn it vertically, horizontally. I don't care. It's up to you. They're your notes. I don't care how you make notes. I just want you to be making notes. All right. So each of these themes, I'm going to have a slide with a description, and I'm going to say more. So I encourage you, don't just write down what's on the slide, but write down also what I'm saying. Besides, you're going to be able to, view this PowerPoint and watch this video again. So it's not that important you get all of the information, because you can go and rewatch it. But I want you listening and learning as well. So here we go. Theme number 1, governance. This is typically what people think of when they think of history. And it has to do with power and the state. Power. Who has it? How is it exercised? The state. What's its nature? How did it grow? How did it decline? It's that study of kings and queens and emperors and empresses. Yes, we will look at those in this class, but it is not going to be the main or the only focus of class this year. Some questions as you're thinking about analyzing for governance. Who's in charge of the society? How are decisions made for the whole society? How are the rules enforced in a society? And how are people held accountable in a society? And lastly, how does power change in a society? What we typically think of as revolts or revolutions, right? The state is such a huge part of our lives today. It's tough to imagine a world without it. But as we'll see in this course, there are many different ways for how societies can organize themselves in a government. That's the G. All right, the E, economic systems, or what you might have learned in elementary and in middle school, the economy. And I bet your middle school teacher told you it's all about money. And he or she was wrong. And it's not going to be the first time that they lied to you or perhaps misled you, right? When we talk about the economy, we're talking about goods and services. And I know you learned this term because my wife's a first grade teacher and she teaches it to her first graders what these words mean. So I know you learned it. Goods are those things that we make or that we get out of the ground. And services are the activities that we provide for others for a wage, for a fee. For example, farmers, right? They grow crops, comes out of the ground, right? Car makers, what good do they make? They make goods. Me, I'm a service provider. I provide education, and in exchange, I'm paid a wage. And so when we look at the economic systems of the various places we're going to study, we're going to look at what is produced and consumed. But we're also going to look at the systems. How are the goods and services produced, exchanged, and managed? It's not so much what, but how it all works. In other words, who gets what, when? And additional question would be, how are goods and services bought, sold, and traded, and with whom? So we're not just going to look at the goods, but we're going to look at the system that is supporting how they're produced, exchanged, and managed. It's not just about money. All right, the T stands for technology and innovation. And a lot of people think that this just means something with a cord, something with a plug that gets plugged in. And yes, that's an example of technology, but it's not the complete definition. When we're talking about technology and innovation broadly, we mean innovations that make life and work easier and more efficient. What do I mean by easier? I'm having to do less work. I'm having to exert less energy in order to make something or do something. And I can do it faster, which means more efficiently. How am I and others able to do this? Well, we create new tools, new skills, techniques, methods, and processes as a way to do this. Another way to think of this is the application of science. When we learn something new about the world and then we apply it to some human endeavor, we've made some innovation or created a new technology. That's our third theme. Fourth theme, social interactions and organization. This is probably the hardest for my students to understand. But it doesn't have to be. If you think about society as people, and specifically, how are they grouped together? And who does what? So that people's needs are met. Because we as humans, we are social creatures. We live in connections and relationships with others. That's just in our nature. But how we do that, how we form those groups, and who in the group does what, that varies and has varied throughout time. And so in this theme, we'll look at how our families are structured and run. Are they large? Are they small? Multi-generational, one generation, two generations? What are the gender roles? All right, what is expected of men and what is expected of women? And what are the customs related to family and kinship? When does one get married? What do you do with the elderly? And finally, what are the customs governing behavior? Because ultimately, we as people have to enforce behavior so that everyone not just can get along, but can get what they need. In other words, that the group can survive, right? So it's very related to governance, but in a less formal way, and less related to the official state, and more related to the individual groups in the society. Next, interactions between humans and the environment. What do I mean by the environment? I'm talking about all those living and non-living things in nature. Right, occurring naturally, living species, climate, weather, natural resources, and of which humans are a part of. So when we look at this interchange between humans and the environment. How do humans impact and change the environment? And vice versa, how does the environment impact and change humans and human behavior? Because it is a symbiotic relationship. It's a dual relationship where throughout history humans have acted on the environment and changed it, and then vice versa, the environment has acted on and changed humans. Lastly, the C, cultural development and interactions. Some people confuse this with the social theme, and it's related because we're talking about people, but we're talking about their ways of living, whether learned or invented. In other words, what makes a group unique? Usually we look at their religion, beliefs, customs, ideologies, arts, architecture, music, all these things that make a group unique. And in this theme, we'll look at how does cultures grow, how does culture spread, and what happens when groups from different cultures come into contact with one another. All right, you get it? Did you get sick? I hope so, because you're going to use these in just a minute. But before we do, I want to check for your understanding. I'm going to stop this video, and what I want you to do is go back over your notes and choose one of the themes and apply it to your family, something you know very well. In 1 to 3 sentences, explain how your family looks through the lens of that theme. I want you to apply the theme to your family. And if you're having trouble getting started, I gave you a sentence stem. By looking at my family through the lens of the theme of fill in the blank, culture, I see that, and then you tell me how your family looks in that lens. All right, get that done, and I will see you in the next video.